Got it.
All right, everyone. Well, we are just working on some logistics on the back end, but thank you for joining with us. We have Cady and Jennifer here. We're going to do some introductions, but I'm Ben with Curate. Wanted to say hello. We are really excited to walk through a couple pieces with you and just kind of tell you how things are going with businesses and how we're doing over here, and also give some insight from a sales and a marketing standpoint too. So really looking forward to the content. We've been talking a little bit before the webinar. We had some time to kind of catch up and see how things are doing. So really excited to introduce these people. We actually, ironically enough, we met before I even joined Curate. We met at Wedding MBA, I guess, gosh, 2.5 years ago now, 2 years ago. And it was really cool to see them, to understand the floral community through their eyes. And I think there were two sets of eyes that were great to see it through to join into the company. So with that being said, we have some questions we're gonna do. Go ahead and chat in. Tell us where you're calling in from and where you're coming from. I think this is going to be good to kind of see everyone. I think we've had people all over the world join some of these webinars. So go ahead and put in the chat where you're coming from. Say hello. I'm out of St. Louis, Missouri, from our houses, as everyone is. And we're excited just to have these two brilliant ladies with us. We have Los Angeles. Hey, Cindy from Los Angeles. Put where you're from, put your name in there, and we'll go ahead and do that as well. Q&A, we're going to have some Q&A too in the bottom side of your Zoom meeting. So make sure you look in that. Put your questions in there. We're probably going to address those near the end of the conversation. So go ahead and put those in there and we'll kind of consolidate those as well. So the chats are coming in. We have Ohio, we have Florida, we have multiple places coming in. With that being said, keep putting them in there. We're going to go ahead and jump off. The first probably 30, 40 minutes is going to be just talking through some business things that Jennifer and Cady put together. And on the last probably 15, 20 minutes, we'll go ahead and address those questions. With that being said, let's go ahead and do an introduction. Cady, if you want to tell a little bit about you, and then Jennifer will go to you.
Hi guys, I am Cady Vance. I'm the owner of Floral V Designs in Dayton, Ohio. We are a mostly wedding and events florist, servicing Greater Dayton and Cincinnati. And then with that, knowing Jennifer Gilman since I started my company, she was a mentor of mine the entire time, ever since way before I was in business. So her and I have been connected for a very, very long time.
Okay, so you just made me feel really old saying, wait. I've known you forever. Actually, this year marks 24 years in the event industry, so I guess I am giving away my age. But I'm Jennifer Gilman, a owner of Flourish and Co, consulting company that works exclusively with wedding and event pros. And we do everything from full-scale launches to working with clients to help refine their marketing, sales, and customer experience strategies to ignite their brand. And yeah, I've known Cady since she was 17, met on a photo shoot for a venue that was opening, and we were just meant to be. We've known each other for a long, long time.
That's great. Great intro. And if you are joining right now, keep asking questions in the chat and we'll keep going from here. But Cady, Jennifer, great having you both on here. And tell a little bit about what your companies do. I know there are a couple of different banners that you guys operate under. So tell a little bit about what those brands are. What do you do within those brands specifically for the company? And Jennifer, since you just got done talking, we'll go to you. Jennifer, talk about a little bit of Flourish and Co and kind of how that ties in. And then Cady, we'll have you do it.
So I actually got my start in the wedding industry as a boutique wedding photographer doing high-end weddings, and did that for probably, gosh, 18 years. So I think that equates to about 1,200 weddings. So I definitely have my street cred that way. But the interesting thing was, for so many years, I spent a lot of time on the lecture circuit, and my goal was always to teach photographers business, to teach them sales. They're all very creative, like-minded individuals, much like florists, not much like my catering clients, and they like to make the pretty, and they like the crafted side of what they do. But so many of them were starving artists, and we don't want to be starving. That's definitely not fun. And so for many, many years, I just became known for my advice for helping wedding businesses grow, particularly photographers. And since then, it has segued into what I do now, which is working with a lot of venues, caterers, florists. Jessica Ware, I saw you chime on chat there. She's a fine-end, high-end stationery person. So that's kind of what I do, is again, guide those clients so that they can take their brand from where it is to where they want to go. And I think that's the jumping point where I see so many small businesses struggle because we're all wearing a million hats, is how do I get from A to B? And we all need those mentorships and those people to help get us from A to B, which Cady can tell you, I've worked with her many times over the years to help her different businesses kind of get from that A to B launch point.
Cool. Cady, did you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I own Floral V, and then we actually started a flower preservation company 2 years ago. So we've been growing that on the side a little bit. But lately, what we are doing right now is kind of just taking care of our customers. Right now, we have, in the past 40 days, we've had tons of inquiries for Floral V for weddings and events, for small weddings all the way up to large weddings, anywhere from current referrals to leads on the Knot and Wedding Wire. And so what we've been doing is really just taking care of our customers, booking lots and lots and lots of phone consultations. So right now what we're doing is if we get a lead, we're responding within, oh my goodness, sometimes minutes. Personally responding, not just an email, texts, phone calls, things like that. And we're getting a lot from our brides that we're the only one responding. So really making a connection with people. People are really wanting that connection right now. So obviously I want that connection right now. So just really taking care of our customers and new ones, old ones, whatever we can do to help. So.
Well, I love that. In fact, Jennifer and I were talking last week about some things, and we were just talking about what we're seeing. Everyone's a little bit different. Everyone's on a kind of a different journey through that time that we're in. But Jennifer was telling me how busy you've been, Cady, and it's cool to see how everyone's doing a little bit differently during this time. I think sometimes people are taking a step back to kind of process things and make sure they are organized. Some people are just blowing and going and going and going. And I think that's awesome too, to see the different elements. And there's no, I think, right or wrong way to handle this COVID situation. But I think it's important to, take a step back, look at your business, but also say, what can I do right now? Or what feels like, what should we do as a business right now? And I love that you guys are staying busy during this time. And a lot of people are asking, hey, what are you doing with your downtime? And it sounds like you don't have too much downtime. You and Jennifer just are just going and going.
That's right. We haven't necessarily had any downtime. We've actually booked 32 new weddings in the past 35 days, which was crazy. And something that we completely didn't expect, obviously, that I hoped and prayed for. But what we really learned is that the response time right now is key. So if we're the first one to relate back and we're the first ones to really make that connection, to literally have a consultation whatever time the bride needs, whether that be 8:30 on a Monday night or randomly on a Sunday afternoon, we're really trying to do our best to take care of them in the way that they need to be taken care of.
I think that's great. And I think what you said right there is focusing on them and how they need to be taken care of, because they're going through a situation too. They just got engaged. They're not sure like what's going to happen with their wedding. So to be that kind of calm in the storm to them, I think that's great. Jennifer, we're going to go into a couple questions kind of on the sales and marketing aspect, but kind of talking about, how, as we're positioning our brand and kind of those different things. We've talked a little bit about branding and kind of a customer experience on our last webinar and kind of in the past. And I know that's like your specialty, you're an expert in it. I love kind of your thought process on that. What does the customer experience really mean to you? And how is that different than customer service? A lot of times people think it's the same thing, but customer service versus customer experience. How do you define the difference and how does that look for you?
So there is a very distinct difference, just like there's a difference between marketing and branding. And I think sometimes in our vernacular, we kind of blur the lines between things so much you kind of forget where one ends and one starts. But customer service is simply what you do. It's the what behind it. Customer experience is how you do it and how you make people feel through that process. So customer experience, and if you look at your favorite brands and kind of dive into what makes them your favorite, you'll look at and start realizing the commonality between, like, let's say Mercedes or Disney or Starbucks, that it's not just a bland customer service like at a grocery store checkout where they say, did you find everything okay, paper or plastic? But it becomes something where it's an experience, and you can take that mundane task and turn it into something experiential. And that's really the difference between customer experience and customer service.
I think that's great. And I think to relate it to kind of what we're doing, like you did right there, it's cool to see, because we all know, like on our side with any brands that we consume or something like that, like we feel like we're just another automated email versus we are cared and handled for and really addressed in a certain way. And I think in this market, I think it is important. I think conceptually it makes sense, right? But how often are we actually saying, okay, what kind of experience am I giving to the customer versus just what service am I giving? And actually offering the difference between the customer experience and the customer service is a huge deal that I think is very important. To that point specifically, like how does customer experience show up within marketing and sales? Like how does that translate kind of tangibly into the marketing and sales efforts that you all do kind of with your company?
From my perspective, and it's really kind of interesting if we kind of, again, put our thinking caps on and actually kind of see how we interact with brands on a day-to-day basis. Customer experience, thanks to social media, has really crept in and become a huge part of marketing as a whole. Think about it. We are sharing our clients' stories. And hopefully we're, through our social media, not just going, here's a pretty bouquet I did today, but we sell the story behind it, what the bride had envisioned, what sentimental value that particular flower had that it reminded her of her grandmother, right? We're personifying and we're building those relationships and those stories. So much of our marketing is revolved around reviews right now, right? Reviews are just word of mouth marketing, right? 94% of people will say they'll trust a recommendation from a friend or a family member versus an advertisement. And online, it's 90%, right? We've now have a generation that has grown up with Amazon. What's the first thing we do? We go to the reviews, we read that, we see that. So your customer experience, and we have a handout that's available today, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but customer service, because it's a soft skill, right? So many times in our business, we talk about hard skill training. We've got process procedure as a florist, as a caterer, you know, you've got certain processes for food, safe food handling. Like we pay a lot of attention to the hard processes of our business, but the soft skills training often falls by the wayside, that customer experience, which ultimately, again, ties into marketing, it ties into sales, and it ties into customer experience. It really is part of a three-legged stool, and you have to have all three of those legs there in order to make the stool work.
Yeah, I really like that. We talked again last week about this three-legged stool, and I think it's interesting because unless you've seen like one of those like one stick stools, which are very interesting, it's like a steady three-legged stool. I think that's important to look at because it's not just your branding, it's not just the customer experience portion, it's not just the marketing, it's just not the sales. They all kind of work together. And not that I'm going to coin a term mixing together those words, but like it really is one crucial piece. And I think it's so important whenever people look at it, they look at the comprehensive view instead of just like, hey, I really need to focus on marketing or I really need to focus on sales. That customer experience, correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of that thing that ties it all together.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely does. And one of the things that, again, is hard because it's so easy to come up with the process and procedure of how you need to prep a dish as a caterer, from the moment it walks out of the freezer to what your chefs have to do, to delivery protocols and service protocols. It's easier to do those processes versus, again, that soft skill training, and how we can systematically build soft skills, soft training for customer service, for sales throughout our processes so that we can consistently get results, right? You know, the benefit of owning a McDonald's franchise is that no matter where you are in the world, that McDonald's cheeseburger and those McDonald's fries are consistent across and every location, every franchise. And we need to make sure as we're dealing our businesses and getting process and procedure to make the perfect bouquet or the perfect lasagna, that we have the same consistencies in our sales and our customer experience as a whole as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes too into that, the branding side comes into the referrals and things that people are researching, and people are doing their homework on these people. And they're really trying to make sure that customer experience is what they're looking for. And the best way to find a customer experience from a brand that you don't even know is to look at the reviews. Like, what experience did another client have? And when you carry that client experience through that whole funnel or the whole process with that client, they're going to come back at the end of the day, leave a review, and it's going to show through that review more so than just executing an event and delivering a service. You're delivering an experience. I mean, Cady, when you're moving forward with the sales process and you're talking through it, you talked a little bit about, you know, the sales that have come in. You booked the 34 weddings in the last 30 days. That's been incredible. When you're booking those weddings, how often do you think about that experience that they're getting? And when you're executing those events, how often do you go back to that place of like, okay, how am I representing myself? Or does that just come naturally from your abilities?
I think that obviously having a marketing guru behind me, always telling me my touch points are the most important thing, definitely helps. So I can't say it's my natural abilities, but I could say it's my natural abilities of her. But I would also say that for me, the one thing that I've realized throughout all of this, like through being in business for 8 years, is people buy your who and your why, right? So people walk into my flower shop and they're like, it just feels different in here. This is so nice. And you know, that's the whole idea, is that we are serving somebody, right? So we are here to serve them. We are here to take care of them. And I think that a lot of, I guess, just businesses, we get into this rut of normal, right? So people come in, they buy something, you check them out. You're like, okay, have a nice day. But at the same time, if you can convert that person into somebody that loves walking into your store, then whatever they need, they're going to think of you first. And for us, it's really just like kind of urgency. So right now, every customer and of ours is super important, and they've always been. But I've told my team right now, it is even more important that every single person literally feels like, you know, that they're our only bride. Like, you know, I think when you get on those Knot pages and the Wedding Wire pages, and you get on Facebook groups and they're like, oh my gosh, these brides think that they're our only bride we have. And we're talking to 50 people in one day. That's totally true. But now we have a little bit more time to focus. So treating them as they're our only bride, because that today they might be the only bride that I'm talking to, has made the world of difference for us.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I think everyone, the people that are joining today, are all across the board, right? You have people that do a couple larger weddings, or maybe even a couple smaller weddings, or the brides or the clients that have tons and tons of brides and clients they work with, but really making sure each person feels individual in this moment, I think is a great thing that maybe during this time we can remind ourselves with when we do have a little bit more time. Some people have more time. When they do have that more time, establish those things that say, hey, we're really focusing on that one client like they're our only client, if they are right now. And then in 6 months, try to continue that mindset throughout the whole process, because I think what you all are saying is it's really important during this time to really shore up some of those practices and attentions, because you're going to be building out consistencies and habits that are going to be hard at times, probably in 6 months when everyone's trying to book a wedding immediately, and probably seeing that right now too. So I love that aspect of really focusing on that one person. And then also kind of diving into marketing a little bit more, and maybe Jennifer, you want to jump in on this one. Diving into marketing a little bit more, it's an interesting time for businesses and marketing right now. There are certain brands that we see just in our normal lives that are marketing, or people that have completely gone off the radar as far as marketing goes. When it comes to marketing, how should we do it during this time, and what's the smartest way to do that? Is it more short-term, long-term, or do you have like different strategies for right now versus the ones that you're trying to do in the future from a marketing standpoint?
Ben, that's a great question. And I've been getting a lot of texts from friends and clients, you know, like, what do we do? What do we do? And the savvy business owner always has one foot in the present and one foot in the future. And, you know, me being around the block for 24 years, I was in business after 9/11. I was in business through various market crashes. And mind you, COVID is something none of us saw on the radar or could anticipate. So we are all, you know, wading through the murky waters of this right now. But we have to look and draw some correlations to things in the past. And what I'm seeing, and just again, this is the personal insight I'm getting from the friends and the people that are messaging me. A lot of us are very overwhelmed. We're struggling with homeschooling, and our husbands or spouses working from home and running a business, and our own schedules have been thrown off. So a lot of us have, just out of the interest of self-care, have gotten a little lost in this. But I'm hopefully encouraging everybody to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and realize that this is actually the perfect time to be marketing, and not to go radio silent out of fear or out of frustration. The caveat to that is, though, you can't come out there and be schmucky salesy, right? No COVID specials, no book a tour today and get a box of N95 masks, right? Like, we can't be slimy and salesy and all that stuff. But this is where, and actually your presenter last week did a great job on this, talking about kind of bringing in the story brand. But right now, while we're kind of feeling all a little lost and discombobulated, that's the power of storytelling. And as you're posting things out there, you can't just go, again, Throwback Thursday to back when we used to get to do pretty weddings and do pretty things and leave it at that. No, right now is the opportunity for you to tell the story of your clients and what you love about your clients and what you love about being able to create for them through food, through flowers, and what that means. Cady has a great campaign going on right now called Dream Forward, because I think some brides feel guilty because, right, most brides have sorority sisters or whoever that were their bridesmaids and their wedding got postponed, but theirs, because it's 9 months from now, is still going to be okay. So we need to allow our customers to dream. No matter what, our clients, especially our bridal clients, have been dreaming about this wedding day since they were 12 years old. We have to give them the platform to dream and think and grow. And I also say this is the perfect time to do kind of the test in your market. What are your competitors doing? If your competitors are not doing anything, which a lot of them aren't, this is just low-hanging fruit. The white noise of the marketplace for a lot of us has actually been reduced significantly. So now if you come out there in the market and you're telling stories and you're educating and you're being positive and allowing people to dream, that is only going to come back to you positively.
I love that. I love the aspect of low-hanging fruit too, because it's not taking advantage of a situation at all. It's literally saying, hey, to your point, people have been looking for a solution. They've been dreaming about this magical event since they were a kid. And now is their time to execute on that. And who's there to answer their call? You know, back to Cady's conversation about, you know, answering the phone and just returning their call as soon as you can, even though we are in the midst of this. It's still to them a magical time. And even though we're seeing kind of the impacts of that, it's important to make sure you are aware of, like, hey, what's happening right now and what's the customer experiencing? And I love that aspect of that. And what's your competition doing? If you're in a very competitive market, make sure you know that. Make sure you know the pulse of your market right now, because to what they're talking about, if you're seeing kind of a gap in the market or people aren't marketing as much, that's a great time for you to market. And I love, I love not offering a pack of N95 masks because I don't know that would go over well with everybody. Some people, man, you can book some weddings with that, I'm sure. I'm sure, but there's a right way to do it. And I think it's very important, just COVID or not, there is a good way to market and to brand yourself. And there is a way that can come off slimy. Even though your intentions are good, just make sure you're always thinking, hey, how does this come across? And I think if your intentions are pure and you kind of looked at it and taken a step back from a customer standpoint, grab a friend, grab someone like Jennifer and just say, hey, how does this look? Does it feel weird? Gauge your audience on that too, and then go for it. You know, the biggest thing is you don't want to be afraid to move and miss out on a big opportunity. And I think that's the big thing that we're looking at today is like, hey, we're all looking at revenue and cash flows and things like that. How can we make sure the future is prepared appropriately? And I think getting there through marketing is super smart too. It kind of along that same line about, where people are in the market and where they've been in the market. A lot of people are looking at their current placement in the market. We've always done luxury, or we've never done luxury before, but we've always done really small businesses, and they want to shift to a different type of client or a budget. Cady, we were talking a little bit about that earlier before the call, but what recommendations would you have on really executing that from an execution standpoint? Maybe Jennifer can hop into from a marketing standpoint as well, with kind of shifting your business model, maybe a little bit considering the time that we're in.
Yeah. So when, a little bit before, obviously, the dreaded COVID word comes out, we were debating whether should we had people ask a couple times this year, do you have a package? And we were like, no, we're full custom. We are really a luxury florist. We are, 95% of our company is weddings and events. And when this happened, a little background is we're one of the only luxury florist in our area that doesn't have a minimum. So that kind of helps you kind of gauge where we are. So we do weddings that are $500, and then we do weddings that are six figures. So like I said, it really, we don't have that minimum. But with people asking, do you have packages? Do you have ways that we can save? We kind of really looked at where we were, right? So I think the most important thing to know is where you are in your market. What do people say about you? What do people say about your managers? What do people say about your flowers? Are you easy to work with after everything? And that's not just necessarily to your clients. That's to your venue owners. That's to your caterers. That's to your photographers, your wedding planners. Those are for me, my core people that I focus on. So we started having a lot of people ask, do you have a package that can save us money? So we decided to pivot. Actually. So the first week that this happened, I started asking a couple core people, and I was like, what do you think about package deals? And they were like, we think it's a great idea. The budget florists in this area aren't necessarily taking care of our clients. They're saving money, but that's it. There's nothing beyond that. So we actually decided to start a secondary brand. That way we still have Floral V as our luxury brand. We actually decided to start a secondary brand that's going to be built on packages. So easy packages that brides can build on our website that we're having made that can be conducive to, for a business standpoint, a little less labor, less time on the front end for sales, as well as making sure the flowers that we're offering for those are flowers that we can always get on a deal. We're not offering Juliet roses in October, right? And so really deciding where can we go? What is in the area? What do people continually ask us for that we're like, no, not really. So that was one thing that I think is a really easy takeaway for your business is when you're sitting there looking at what can we do? A lot of people are like, how do you come up with an idea like that? I was like, well, for me, I think about everything I say no to. So when somebody's so that's why we started preservation. When I had 40 brides in the fall ask me if I could preserve their flowers, and I'm like, sure, why not, right? 40 brides just asked me to do it. Obviously there's a niche, there's a need, and everything that I say no to is an easy way to think of are we already grasping this market and then losing it because we're saying no? So, so we were able to pivot and start working on that brand. Obviously the market's going to change, right? You're still going to have luxury events. If you have a $500,000 wedding, that wedding is still going to happen. It just might be a $250,000 wedding instead of the $500,000 wedding. So it's already shifting. We've already seen it. For my company, we've had $250,000 of events postponed. We have had some cancellations. But with that being said, the contact forms that we've received in the past 2 weeks, most of them, I would say over 75 to 80% of them are on our lesser scale of budget. So we do ask on our contact form, what's your goal budget? And I would say that 75% of them are under $1,500. We are still getting those ones that are above $5,000, right? But for us, like there's a need and there's a niche that's going to be happening. We are, like I said, we're focusing on urgency. And so if we take our Floral V standpoint of urgency and convert that to a brand that is going to be a little bit more budget friendly than our luxury brand that we've already built, again, it's low hanging fruit because nobody else is answering their phones. Nobody's actually responding to their customers. Nobody's treating these brides with respect and being like, hey, I see you. This sucks. It sucks for us too, but we're going to have a wedding and it's going to be amazing. And it doesn't matter if it's 50 people or 150 people, or if it's going to be 10 people, we're going to rock this out for you.
I think from a marketing perspective though, what you have to think about if you're considering doing something like what Cady's doing, she just didn't go, hey, I'm going to start a budget flower company, right? There already are those in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So how you still have to come to market, you still have to bring something different and new and fresh to the table. Your pivot can't just be something that's already been out there before. So we've put a lot of time and effort into her brand launch and what's the personality behind the brand? How is it different? Just because you might have a budget doesn't mean, again, you want the, pardon my French here, the wham bam, thank you ma'am, where, you know, just give us your credit card and get your flowers and get the hell out. Like we're still figuring out ways how to make this brand have personality, to make it easier and to still allow those budget brides to have luxury, even if it's only in perception. So coming into market and thinking of ways to pivot yourself, you still have to have, at the end of the day, a product and something that's different to stand out in the marketplace.
I think that's awesome. We put, I was going to let everybody know too, we'll put these out there. We've already put them on social too, the different handles to follow their work and things like that. I was going to ask you, Cady, for your other side of that business, the pivot, is it still going to be under Floral V, or do you have another handle they can follow too?
It's Blooming Branch Florist.
Perfect. All right, we'll put those down in the chat too for everyone as well, so you can see those. Go follow both these people. Perfect. No, I love that. I love the thought process behind that. I love the pivot in the market and making sure you are ready for that, and doing it strategically and intelligently. And you know what? Maybe you do it for 6 months. You're like, okay, great, we did it for 6 months, and then you can go back to another one. We sometimes call that a lever. Sometimes you can flip a lever and have a rush in if you need it, or pull the lever off if you don't. And I think that's, from a marketing and sales standpoint, I think that's super smart to do, because whether it's COVID, whether it's you sprain your ankle for a couple months, like anything, you want to make sure you're prepared for whatever comes your way. Jennifer, I know you mentioned the handout, and we have a handout we're going to be sending out to everybody after this webinar, so you can kind of see inside the mind of these two brilliant ladies. They have a great resource, and in the resource that we're going to be sending out, there's a little bit of talking around customer journey mapping and touch point analysis. Jennifer, can you explain these concepts a little bit more and why it's so important for the sales and the marketing process?
Definitely. And this kind of goes back to the soft skill training that I had mentioned earlier. Probably the number one request pre-COVID is that I would get from my clients was constantly, how do I take my business to the next level? Right. And I mean, it's almost sometimes when we hear it out there, or we see a course online that says, take your business to the next level. It's said so much that it almost comes across as trite anymore. But it's so true. A lot of us, like Cady, who's been in the business 8 years, right? She's already got her sweat equity, and she's already figured out, and through bumps and bruises along the way, of what didn't work for her business, and she had to figure out coolers and logistics and ordering software. Like, she did that. But then as an established pro, you do get to the point where you're like, okay, I got that stuff figured out, but I'm still not where I want to be. I'm not the brand that I'm in love with, right? My customers might love it, but I know somewhere in the back of my mind, it's not where I know I can be or I want to be. And I actually went through this process with my photo studio after kind of 9/11, which was a tremendously huge shakeup to the economy, as well as kind of our psyches. And then at the same time was kind of when the transition for photographers of digital, from film to digital. So we even had kind of, it was a very odd time with very shifting sands in the marketplace from all sorts of different levels. But it was realizing how I could systematically figure out a way to make sure, whether it was myself, my business partner, or our associate photographers, how we could make sure our clients had the same experience throughout the company, no matter which person in our company they were dealing with. And it was also part of realizing that building a brand forward, when times get tough, if you're treating your business solely as a commodity or as a price tag, or maybe you're the most cost effective in the market, or you're the budget caterer, or the middle priced venue, wherever you fall in your niche, if you're differentiating on price and only price, or just the fact that you have a decent product, when those market shifts change, you're also probably the first one to realize, oh, well, they're offering $500 cheaper. I'm going to go down the road to them. Relationships and creating a business based on customer experience insulates you to some extent against dips in the marketplace. So again, how we can create those systems in our business, and a journey map, if you haven't done one, literally breaks down your business and how every customer interacts at key stages of your business. So from the first interaction, what drew them to you? Was it referrals? Was it your website? Was it an ad campaign you happened to have done? Through the initial inquiry process, through consultations and onboarding, through sales meetings, tasting, floral mock-ups. So you basically look at your business and each one of your product lines, right? Because your corporate clients have a totally different event need, booking a business lunch for a Friday meeting versus a bride doing a black tie wedding 16 months from now. So how can we break up those systems? How can we, through our customer touch points, which is literally every touch point your brand has with that customer, how can we make it more efficient? How can we make it more effective? How can we make it more enjoyable, memorable? One of the biggest things you'll start to realize when you take the time to literally dissect your business is realizing how many points of contact are actually missing. You know, do we send a thank you card after the client signs with us, right? Cady just booked with, an $11,000 wedding last week, and do you just collect the check and then not talk to them until the next payment's due? That's a huge missed opportunity in order to build that relationship, build those referrals with your clients. But again, key is to make sure that you can consistently execute it, because you can't do it for one client and not the other. You don't get to be a little bit of Mercedes or a little bit of Tiffany's, right? You have to walk the walk and talk the talk all the time, which means you have to have the systems in place, and your customer journey mapping and analyzing and figuring out your touch points will provide you the foundation and the system to help get you there.
I love that. And you mentioned foundation and in making sure you have that in place. I think that's huge. And I think just as an industry, we need to make sure we do have those foundational pieces and processes in place. And that's why I love that downloadable resource that you guys send over to us. We're going to be having that. It's going to be sent out to everyone that's attending today. And we'll probably work with you guys to get that out to more people, because I think it's super important and very detailed on some of those processes. And you talk about the referrals too. I mean, referrals are huge. And if people aren't referring you to their friends, I mean, hopefully everybody's got a friend, and sometimes those people are going to get married. And I think it's super important to realize that every person you come in contact with, it can trickle down quite a bit as far as who's going to hear about you from that person. And if they have a wedding and everyone's there and they see all the flowers, oh, I'm getting married next month. Like, who's your florist? Or next year, who's your florist? And I think that's a great opportunity with referrals.
Well, Ben, I think the magic of referrals, which maybe people don't fully understand, is you can put a heck of a lot of money into Google ads and SEO and making sure all that stuff works. But at the end of the day, it's an unqualified lead. If they had to Google florist near me, they don't know your price point. They don't know your differentiating factors in the market. So from a sales process, you have to work a lot harder to convert that person from, I don't know you at all, to the point I had to Google you, to here's my Amex. Whereas when you get qualified word of mouth and referrals from both your existing clients as well as the vendors or frienders, as we like to call them, right? The venue, the wedding planner, the caterer, everybody's referring you. They know you. They know your demographic. The bride knows, oh, I spent $10,000 on my wedding flowers. I don't think my friend Amy, she might like those flowers, but she might not have it in the budget. So I'm not going to upset my friend and send her to a florist I know she has no way of possibly affording. So anytime we get those referrals and that word of mouth, that's gold, because it's no longer that blind date marketing. They're already pre-qualified on some level, and that's why that's so important.
I'll echo that too from our side. I mean, we're a software that helps companies, florists, and event professionals kind of automate their pieces. We notice that when, from a conversion standpoint, conversions from just like a Google search, looking for curate software, or even floral software to help out, we notice that conversions are a lot better with referrals coming from someone else, because you're right, it comes from somebody, it's trusted, it's a referral. Like, those things are gold. And I love that you guys know that too and recognize that and kind of work towards that. We were talking a little bit earlier too about referrals and kind of what that looks like from a vendor relationship, and even like word of mouth marketing, because referrals, whether it's a review or whether it's word of mouth marketing, I think those are both super crucial. How does that play into like your vendor relationships too, and how you, maybe Cady, when you're executing on the event, how does that play into the back of your mind when you're working with those different vendors or the venue specifically?
Well, I think we know, like, you know, we all have our core venues that we deliver to consistently, right? We're on their recommended list. So we've already got that referral basis coming from them. But we also know all of their quirks, right? We know that this venue doesn't want us to show up a minute before noon, no matter what the bride says. You know, we know that this venue, we have to tear down that night. So we're not going to ask, hey, can we come on Monday? We also ask them, how can we make this easier for you? You know, is there something that we're doing that you might be like, oh gosh, they just did it again? Or is it something that they like that we're doing, that we can continue to build on with my team? So obviously we are a wedding and event. So last year we did 165 weddings. So we're going on Saturdays. We're going like 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got different teams strategically going out. We have different amounts of setup. We have some large events that I'll go to and my team will go to and I don't leave. Right. And then I'll have a couple that are drop-offs and then a couple that are like hand-laid greens. Right. So we know that what the venues need, and then we're going to help them with that. Also with our planners. So our word of mouth marketing, you know, planners are amazing. I hear from so many florists or from planners that, well, we just don't really work well with florists. And I'm like, why? I want all of those brides, right? Like, you just made my world amazing. I have a timeline. I know where I need to be. I know what flowers need to be labeled without me having to ask the client. So we really work on that. I've also decided through touch points, for our touch points with not only our brides, but our vendor professionals and our frienders, like, hey, what do you need? Like, what do you like that other florists do that you wouldn't mind me doing? And what are some things that you need that can make us like the first florist that you recommend? And it's really interesting to hear from the people that obviously are your biggest cheerleaders, but what they like about you, but what they want you to do more of. I mean, that's easy, you guys. That is so easy. Like, and it's something as simple as a touch point that Jennifer created for us was we have these little baggies, and I had inexpensive napkins with our logo and our phone number printed on them. And in that also we have a little card that I have extra pins on, and we staple it together. We add it to our boutonniere and corsage box, and it's like to our photographer and wedding planner friends. So you don't have to use your clothes to squeeze the water off the bouquets. Because how many times as a florist have we dropped off flowers and they're like, oh, grab me a bouquet. And I'm sitting there like the bride and I take my shirt and I'm like, right, before I hand the bouquet off. So things like that are going to be just things that make their day better, how can we help them is our word of mouth marketing, because they have things they need. You know what? And then it's also one of those things of being grateful. So when we have a planner that sends us bride after bride after bride, what am I going to do? I'm not just going to be like, hey, thanks. You know, you just sent me $25,000 worth of business. I'm going to send them an amazing, steakhouse dinner gift card for them to go and take another person to have cocktails and drinks and be like, you don't have to invite me, but have cocktails on me. Like, being grateful and showing your thanks goes so far, because I think so many people have their hands out. They're like, hey, refer me, refer me, refer me. But then what can I do for you? And they're like, I don't know if I can do anything for those venues though. Like, I want their business, but what can I do for them? And I think that making sure that when you ask for people's business, you have a way that you can return it to. So when you have those planners that refer you, I have 5 that I work with day in and day out. And when somebody asks me for a referral, I'm like, okay, so do you like the cool posh, like city guy? Do you like the country girl? Do you like the Chicago girl? Like, all of my planners are different, right? So one client's not going to like this one all the time. And I tell my planners that, and I reciprocate in referrals as well. So, having that plan of like, what can I do for you builds your word of mouth marketing, instead of just putting your hand out and being like, hey, we've all been like, how can we get on your website? How can we get on your referred vendor list? And you're like, you're asking me to give you money. So, really making sure of calling those people that you really want to be on their list and being like, what can I do to help you? What are things that our industry sucks at that I don't know about, that I can build into my process and procedures and help everybody lift up the industry in our area. And then that immediately, and when you continually do that over the year in our selling season and in our not, I think that's another important takeaway, is that, we all have time right now, but the difference of businesses that are going to flourish through whatever the next thing is, there's always something else, is not stopping selling in our busy times, right? So we need to continue our touch points in September and October. For us, that's like hell month, right? Like 11 weeks of crazy, like we work 80 hours a week. But maintaining and figuring out a process right now that we can maintain these touch points, because now we're going to do 12 months of weddings in 4 months. So, maintaining these processes, these procedures, these touch points, the word of mouth marketing, and then being the first person to the people that refer us the most in those times when they're pulling their hair out and being like, hey, what can I do? Like, I get it. Like, I have lots of grays happening, right? What can I do to help you? And I think that when you get into that mindset, that's what transitions your company. That's what transitions your company into, I guess, almost luxury. That's what, when you're going to war with these people and you've got their back, and then that's what equals the word of mouth marketing.
I love that. And I love how purposeful you are with that aspect too, because it isn't just like, oh, like refer me, love to work with you in the future, but it's very strategic, and it's not like slimy at all. It's not like you're trying to do it to get something. It's like you're genuinely reaching out to help out because you can and you want to. And I think just having that heart, if you don't have the heart for that, find a way to create that, or find a way to fix that, because in this industry specifically, you need to have a heart for helping people. And I think the people that genuinely come out of that and show that they have the heart to help out, there can be crazy instances on an event or even before or after an event. So just knowing that someone's there with you and has your back, I think is huge. And I think people, what I've seen from Florists sometimes is we just focus on, executing the event or working on the client. Your client is paying you, but your other clients are potential vendors and things that you could work with.
I think from a referral standpoint too, sometimes the vendors have—
I love that aspect. In fact, a question.
Sorry.
No, please.
No, what I was going to say, and I'll make this quick. I think sometimes we show up at events as vendors and we kind of have well, this is my wedding as the photographer, and the DJ is like, well, this is my wedding. This industry is very unique in the fact that there might be 12 different companies coming together to execute one job in the course of 5 hours that have never worked together before and maybe never will again. And so you can't have an us versus them mentality. And in reality, the bridesmaid or the bride that loved you might be able to refer you 2 weddings in the course of like 12 months if a cousin gets married or somebody else. But the caterer, the venue that's talking to 40, 50 brides or corporate clients a week, if I'm going to hedge my bets on referrals, I'm going to go to the hub of referrals. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm playing in the sandbox really well with them and helping them help, it's the help me help you, because I'm going to bet on the person talking to 50 clients a week versus the bride who may or may not have somebody she knows getting married in the next 12 months or whatever. So logistically, it makes much smarter or much more logic to fish in that bigger pond when it comes to building that word of mouth and those experiential elements as well.
I love it. That's great. We are about 10 minutes left. We have some questions coming in. I'd love to address. Some of these have been kind of answered, but I'd love to dig in a little bit deeper. You actually talked to Cady a little bit about, October is coming up and it's going to get crazy. So the question is, how are you planning to handle the influx of new inquiries that are coming in after COVID's over? Like, what is the process for even keeping track of those and making sure no one's getting lost?
Right. So what we usually do is I'm the owner, right? So I kind of handle all the inbound contact forms from our website, Wedding Wire and The Knot. I have two amazing managers that are kind of fielding phone calls right now. They actually took that away from me 2 days ago so I could have a moment. They're like, you're just kind of not yourself. And I know you are not yourself, but still. So they're kind of taking in phone calls. But we also have a click to text too. So brides can click and text us through another company. So I kind of handle those, and then I kind of view what the bride needs, where the location is. And then I make a decision, am I going to actually talk to her, or am I going to give her to one of my two sales girls? So, and I'm, seeing if they've been to that location, what the bride needs, who's referred her, different things like that. And from that point, we are literally, so on our contact form, as well as The Knot, I know on Wedding Wire, but I'm not sure about The Knot, it gives their phone number. So we decided to text. I was like, no more email responses. We're going to text them immediately. And it is amazing to see the response that we're receiving. So, hey, it's Cady from Floral V. I received your inquiry. I know things are crazy right now, but I'd love to take 20 minutes and have a phone consultation with you. Of course, it's free. They respond back immediately. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for getting back to me so quickly. I'm available, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great, we're booked. I'll call you on Tuesday. By the way, send me your Pinterest board. And literally from that point on, we have our consultation. I've also talked with my team. So right now, we're giving proposals in the same day, right? With Curate, it's amazing. I literally do the proposal as I do the consultation. So I add it up. I'm like, hey, in 10 minutes, you're going to have an email in your inbox. And I know that sounds crazy for florists that are thinking, oh, I have to price it out. I have to build recipes. We've kind of gotten to the point where what your standard bridesmaids bouquet as a company that you charge, that you can make money on a $195 bridal bouquet. That you can charge $12 on a boutonniere. That's mine, right? Obviously not everybody's the same. So to get that quickly, we're going to give them this proposal, and they're so excited to have something there that they're booking. So, and from that point on, they're booking, they're having questions. We have changes. We email them the new proposal, and in 24 hours, we're having a new bride. And then from that point on, I've got kids and they're yelling in the background now. From that point on, they've got a text message from me or my two managers. And we're here, right? We're sitting at home. We're on our computers. We can text back if, hey, you don't know what color mauve you want, right? Which is mauve is like the devil of our blush pink this year. What kind, do you want a lavender mauve or do you want a rosy mauve? So, that's really what's making a difference, I think, in our area of making sure nobody gets lost, is just making sure that it's immediate and they're taken care of within 24 hours, as fast as we can go. And if I can't do it, I have two other people right now that it's the three of us, that's it. One of us is going to create the urgency.
I love that. I love urgency. I think it's huge. I was talking to Jennifer about this too, about the Harvard study that just shows your likelihood of getting in touch with people as you let the time go by. People get busy, and we're all sidetracked, and not even sidetracked, we're all multitasking, whether it's kids in the background, whether it's school or feeding someone. So, they just stop talking. It's a different concept of where we are today. And when things come in, that's your time to fire. That's the time to get in. And we do that from our company as well. I think it's a great business practice just in general. So I love that aspect of it. A question about marketing that came in maybe for you, Jennifer. We talked about different marketing efforts that you all do with your company, whether it's Google, whether it's referral and things like that. How do you effectively diversify your marketing efforts? Obviously, there are tons of ways that you can market, whether it's social, referrals, search, things like that. How do you diversify those efforts? And what are those key things that you need to see to decide if that marketing idea is good? Where are the metrics at on that? And how do you know, like, if you continue trying this one versus another one that's more effective?
That's a great question. And I think to some extent that requires a little bit of reverse engineering. I think so many times we're like, hey, I want more customers. Okay, what kind of customers? What's that customer look like? What demographic are they? So you kind of have to reverse engineer this and think about what your end goal is. Is it just more awareness about your brand? Is it actual conversions and sales? Is it building that word of mouth and strategic partner relationships? So it requires a little bit of forward thinking on your behalf, that you have to envision what those end results are and then realize the demographic and the behaviors that get you to that point and how you can decide the best marketing platform to get to that. So if it's maybe just awareness or attracting new customers, social media might be the way to go. If it's, in the case of my catering or florist friends, like, okay, I'm not getting a lot of new inquiries right now, but I need to get a campaign going where I can reach back to my top customers to encourage them to book new business going forward. So I think you kind of have to think about what your end result is and then find the channel and the medium that's going to best capture that customer. And again, no matter what, at the end of the day right now, it's all about the storytelling, the more emotional connection of the situation we're in versus those BOGOs and sales and those kinds of things that we used to do. That's probably not going to work for a little bit longer as we go through this.
That's perfect. I love it. That's great. Another question, I think we have 2 minutes left.
Sure.
Dennis asked, do you have any experience with Wufoo, WUFOO? I've been getting requests through them by email, but haven't actually been on their website. Thanks for the advice.
Oh, is that one of those like thumbtacks or those kind of referral things, like job bid sites?
It sounds like it. Let me check.
Yeah. Thank you. I like having you as an assistant.
It's an online form. So basically creating a form for your website. We have one with Curate that you can plug in your website.
That's it.
Yeah. Tell me about your experience with Wufoo. Have you heard of them? What has your thought been with them so far?
Yeah, actually, I have quite a few clients that use the Wufoo forms, and really that's just kind of a delivery mechanism. No matter what, however you're designing your contact form, your inquiry form, the more information you can get, the better. Now, mind you, you don't want it to be War and Peace and ask them what their favorite colors are and their birthday and, you know, what they're binging on Netflix, whatever. But those pre-qualifiers, especially in the event industry, I know if not only asking what their wedding date is, but their venue. I know if they booked the $20,000 venue in town, then they're my client. If they're at the Eagles Hall, they're not my client. They kind of selectively weeded themselves out. So there's certain kind of key things that all of us should be putting in our inquiry form that allow us to get some of those pre-qualifying questions out there, especially like Cady and some of my other clients that don't have minimum purchases. Those inquiry forms allow you to kind of do some self-selective screening. And so oftentimes in my wedding industry, you know, not everybody can afford $10,000 on wedding photography. And I'm not going to call the client and say, oh, sorry, we know we're too expensive for you. I'll just let them nicely know that we're booked for their date just based upon some of the pre-qualifying things that they had sent me. So no matter what inquiry form you're doing, make sure you're strategic about the questions you're asking on that form.
I love that. I love the being strategic part of that form, because a lot of people we've heard before that, oh, I don't feel comfortable asking their minimum price. And even though it's kind of an industry thing sometimes, or they have like a price range they want to put out there, but they feel uncomfortable putting out there. If you're uncomfortable with that, put something like what Jennifer is saying, like questions that kind of give you what you're looking for without asking very blatantly, if that's uncomfortable for you in any way. I love that aspect of finding out. Plus, the vendor relationships that you've been working on, that Cady and Jennifer have been talking about, you can already tag onto that. Oh, great. Yeah, we work with that vendor all the time. We love Jamie over there. She's been great to work with. So understanding how connected you are, even before they come in for that consultation, is a huge win. I like that.
Definitely.
I think it's really interesting too. So there's some different random things that we have on our contact form. So obviously we ask where their ceremony and their reception is, who's their photographer, right? Because a lot of our brides value high-end photographers. We ask for their budget, but we have ranges. So we have like under 1,500 to 3,000, 3,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 7,500 and plus, right? And then we also ask, you can ask things like you have an ideal client, whether we like that ideal client, like in a box is, it is what it is. But we all know that if you ask, a bride, what are her top 3 brands, right? You could probably look across all of the the weddings that you did last year and see that over 75% of them probably liked this brand, right? They liked Pottery Barn, or they're a Target brand, or, all of those different kinds of things. So you can see if that bride is your bride in your box, right? The other thing too, you can ask, who their caterer is. That's actually one that we started asking, because we had a couple times where they were at the most expensive venue, the most expensive photographer, the most expensive caterer in our area, right? So I'm like, okay, so they're at 250 people. They're already at 50 grand for their wedding. And they say they have $1,000 to spend on flowers and they have 250 guests. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really going to work. But we can tell them ahead of time, be like, hey, for this type of wedding, our average starts at around 2,800. So for something like this. So, I just wanted to let you know that before we get started. And I think too, the industry is kind of opened up, and our brides have opened up to being like, hey, what's your budget? And I say it in a way that I'm like, I don't want to sell you every single peony in June if you have $1,000 to spend and you have 25 tables just because your Pinterest page is covered in peonies. I'm not going to take that and then break your heart when I just charged you 10 grand. So knowing and being able to say like, hey, this is the reason why we ask your budget. We want to make sure that we're on the same page so that when I recommend things to you, I'm not recommending things that are going to totally skyrocket your budget and stress you out at the end of this appointment. And they're like, I totally get it. And then I also say, like, you can always tell that hesitation. They're like, well, and I'm like, you know what? You totally don't have to tell me. I'm going to price it out based on what I see, but it'll probably be higher than you're expecting. Is that cool with you? And then we can cut. And they're like, okay, I'm okay with that. So give them the decision to tell you.
I love that. I love giving them the options. And sometimes, and I'm sure you see it all the time, you give them the option. It may have been twice what their budget was, but they're like, oh yeah, I like that. Let's just move forward with that.
Right.
Because they didn't know the budget in the first place. They're like, I guess this is how much it costs, but you're the professional and you let them know. I think that's great. We're at 5 minutes over, which is perfectly fine because we still have people on here and these questions have been great. So thank you both for joining. This has been excellent. We have that downloadable resource we're going to send out with the recording of this webinar. If you have a friend that maybe they were unable to join, maybe they didn't realize what the concept was here, and you think this would be valuable, feel free to send this out to your friends. Send them that email that you're going to get with the recording. We'd love to share this information and work off this info. Jennifer and Cady, it's been great having you both on here. You guys are both incredibly knowledgeable in the space. And if you're still on here, seriously, look to these women for guidance and leadership. If anyone does want to reach out to you, do you recommend reaching out via handle on Instagram, or what's the best way to follow up if they have any questions?
I can be found at flourishandco on Instagram, Facebook, website, you name it. So whatever works best for you, I answer all channels.
Yep, same for me. Whatever's easiest. We check them all the time.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for joining. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope everyone had a great week. Stay healthy, stay happy, and stay learning.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.